Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing week 28 of my 2020 reads. This week I finished one book and I DNF'd two others, but that means that I have finished all of my reading for the Hugos. So first, let me talk about the book that I finished, which was The Light Brigade by Kameron Hurley. This is a science fiction novel that takes place in a future on Earth where instead of governments, we have these huge mega corporations which are controlling the world. And this is very much a dystopian future. There's a lot of greed and a lot of unequal access to resources. People, depending on their citizenship status, will have access to healthcare and jobs or not. So it's a very interesting dystopian future, and in this future, a lot of these corporations are at war with Mars. So there are some humans who formed colonies on Mars, and there is a war now between the Earth and Mars. Mars has attacked the Earth and has destroyed Sao Paulo. We follow Dietz, who is someone whose family was in Sao Paulo and were all killed in this attack by Mars, who signs up to be an army grunt. And we follow Dietz as they go through training and as they enter this war. But what's really interesting about this is that the Army has a special technology that allows it to send its soldiers via light waves. So it kind of breaks down people's bodies and reforms them on the other side. And this is how they're able to conduct this war, sending the soldiers far away to places like Mars. But when Dietz goes through this being sent as a light wave, something is different. So this technology is very new and it doesn't always work as expected. And things go kind of wonky for Dietz. So we follow them as they're trying to figure out what's going on and as they're going from battle to battle. So this story, I thought, had a lot of really cool things about it. It was very, very engaging. You were fully in Dietz's head, and I think that this feeling of being in war was so strong, especially as Dietz is set from battle to battle and trying to figure out what's going on with the way that this kind of light transportation is affecting them. I think that we're along with them for this whole ride. We're confused as they're confused, and as they start to figure out what's going on, we start to figure out what's going on. And I thought that that was just very, very engaging. I loved the politics in this. This is very much a book that is all about throwing you into a world that is filled with corporate greed and war as a way to talk about how bad corporate greed and war are. And so I really liked a lot of that. I think that if you're somebody who wants a political book or who likes military kind of SF, I think that this book is absolutely for you. It was, however, really, really violent, like really violent. This is probably, I don't know, past the upper limit of what I can comfortably tolerate. It was really gory and just very graphic and descriptive, and I think that I was able to handle it okay simply because I was behind the message that it was telling and I understood what this was being used for. However, it was still very, very graphic. So I thought that this book did some really interesting things, but it was a little hard to take. Also, I didn't think that the ending was 100% the way that I would like. I thought that it was maybe a little too conveniently wrapped up. So I might have preferred like a messier ending to this story, but it was still very, very good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Now moving on to the books that I DNF'd this week, and neither of these books were bad books. It was just that I was really struggling to get into them and I found myself unable to really pick them up. I just wasn't reading them, so eventually I gave up and DNF'd them. Both of these I've been reading for a couple of weeks and I just have not been making progress, so I finally decided to call it. So the first of these is The City in the Middle of the Night by Charlie Jane Anders. This is a book that has amazing world building. I really liked the world building in it. It takes place on a planet that humans have colonized, but this planet is tidally locked. So there is part of the planet that is permanently in darkness and part of the planet that is permanently in light. and we have a couple of cities that are on that edge between darkness and light, and we follow some characters in these cities. There's a lot in here about repressive governments. There's a lot about trying to understand other cultures, these sorts of things. I thought that some of those themes were really interesting, but I really was struggling with sort of the atmosphere of this book. Even though it's very beautifully written, there is such a very heavy emo atmosphere. There's just this kind of melancholic, almost melodramatic type of feel. We follow a couple of different characters, but the main one, told from the first person perspective, is a college student who is in love with her roommate, and we just get a lot of kind of emo yearning and pining and kind of obsessive behavior that is just, I don't know, I wasn't so into it. So even though I liked a lot of the world building, the cultures and the way that this world is set up because of the difference in the way that the light works here and some of the alien culture, I mean, there's just a lot of cool world building in here, but I wasn't really into the characters, and I wasn't really into this kind of emo relationship that was dominating some of the stuff for me. And I talked to Sush because he's read this book already, and he said that it gets much more melodramatic in terms of the relationship, and I just wasn't looking forward to it. So after like 2 or 3 weeks of trying to read this and not making much progress, I decided to DNF it at 20%. And the other book that I DNF'd this week was Middlegame by Seanan McGuire. So this is another book where it wasn't that it was a bad book, I was just really struggling to get into it and to want to continue with it. So this book takes place in the modern day, and we have sort of an evil genius scientist alchemist who has split something called the Doctrine into 2 baby twins, and one of them basically gets this immense power of words, can, you know, spell and utilize words and is so good with language, and the other one gets an immense power with math and is just so good with numbers, but they each kind of struggle with each other's powers. These twins are separated and grow up in different parts of the country, but they discover that they can actually communicate through their minds with each other, even though the alchemist doesn't want that to happen and is kind of trying to keep them unaware of what's going on and trying to somehow groom them for something. So I really liked the twins. I liked this look at what it would be like for a child to grow up with some sort of kind of immense genius in one area but no other areas. I liked their interactions with each other. It was just, that part was really interesting, but I could not handle the evil mad scientist who was basically kind of a mustache twirling evil character. It was just so over the top that every time we went back to that character, I was pulled out of the story completely and kept getting annoyed. So I made it through about 18% of this book, and again, there were some good parts of the book, but then there were some other parts that just really got on my nerves. Also, it was a little bit enigmatic and mysterious in certain ways, but it would hint at things, and sometimes that just gets on my nerves because it feels like you're being mysterious for the sake of being mysterious, rather than a mystery for us to uncover. It's more like, whoa, just a little over the top. So anyway, that got on my nerves, so I ended up DNFing it. So those were the 3 books that I finished and DNF'd this week. These were the last 3 books that I needed to read for the Hugos, so I was glad to make the decision to be done with them, even if some of them I did that through DNFing. If you guys have read any of these books or you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear what you think down below. Just leave me a comment.